Howdy, everyone. Matt here. I got a question for you. Do you think there's a difference between the work ethic of the different generations of physical therapists? Let's talk about it. All right, everyone. First and foremost, let me introduce myself. My name is Matt. I am Matt the PT, coming at you with another video and another topic of something from the physical therapy world. And thank you, first off, everyone who has subscribed. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a copay. And of course, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up. Now, getting on right into this. So, here recently on a Facebook group, some individual posted something about saying, I'm looking at going either into nursing or physical therapy as a second career. And they posted this anonymously. Now, I'm going to say it could be rage baiting because there's been a ton of stuff that's just been anonymous and it just kicks up just a little dust storm there. People just arguing back and forth. Well, I threw in there my conspiracy theory. If you don't know what it is, I said, yeah, all these negative comments are going to be in there. It's because people are upset that this is going on, but that's because of the therapists in the 80s and 90s that were doing ultrasound and hot packs and, this the BS exercise. They weren't really working people hard or trying to be actually independent, good providers and just doing these subpar documentation. And that's what led us to where we are now. I said, I'm just going to put that out there. And that's what they wanted the APTA to defend. You want the APTA to defend using ultrasound and hot packs and all that stuff. Okay. And somebody commented on there and they said, you're not wrong. And they only commented anonymously. And I don't know anything about this person. I don't know him from Adam. I don't know anybody, know anything about him. And they said, yeah, you're right about the documentation. But, with our time, we had time to spend with patients, to spend that one-on-one, to do that good quality time. Yeah, because you got paid really well and you didn't have to see multiple patients at one time. But they said our age group is known for our work ethic. So this may be someone who is older. Again, I don't know. And they said that they only stayed home for a fever or maybe a blizzard, that they stayed home when somebody unalived themselves, or they found out they got cheated on. They just powered through all of that. And they said, since we're making assumptions about people, I assume these kids these days stay home for a lot less. So getting into this thing about just that work ethic, all these young kids now just don't do enough. They don't try at all. And I want to say this, okay? If you looked I tried to find some evidence on this, but there was so much evidence. But every generation thinks the younger generation, the generation after them, are lazy and just cannot work. And they have so many gripes about them. I saw something where a professor put an excerpt from an article up in a page on a projector and asked people, when do you think this was written? People were like, 2000 this, 2000 that. And they said, well, 1930 something or 1940 something. Just to show that it's been the same over and over and over again. They're just doing this thing. But I will tell you this, and this reminded me of an article I wrote years ago. And it was called My Year Without Vacation. And it was literally like a year. I never took any time off, any significant time. I may have took a day off because I was sick, but I was still working in some capacity of doing something. And I'm going to tell you this. I really see that there's just a difference in the time now. Now, I grew up, in the 80s and 90s in a blue collar area. People work factory jobs, unskilled labor, skilled labor, trades. They did those things. In that time there, if you worked hard, you show up early, you leave late, you work on weekends, you sacrifice, you do all this stuff. You get the overtime, you get the bonuses, you get the promotions, you get all that. And we as kids, we got to benefit from all that. We got all the, the fun stuff. You get to go out to the Ryan Steakhouse and actually get to eat, have a good dinner. You get those. You get to go on your vacation, down to Florida, our redneck vacations. You got those things. But I want to say this, and this has been my experience, and of course, share yours as well. I've worked for some pretty big companies over the years. And I know that I did those same things. Now, I'm going to preface this. There's been a thing where people want to be applauded for doing the minimum. You're doing what's required of you. The minimum. That people are like, well, I should get a bonus because I show up on time. I come back from break on time. I never take any of this. I get all my work done, and they want to be rewarded for just doing that. Now, I'm not saying that. There is the thing to say. Hey, you do the work that expected of you. Okay, should you get rewarded above and beyond that? Probably not, because you gave this expectation. I met the expectation. Okay, you didn't go above and beyond. But I'll tell you this: I have had so many times in my career, early on, that I did so much more. Things like, again, showing up early just to make sure everything is ready for that first patient that comes in the door. Staying late after patients that, once they're done, or staying as long as needed. Working through a lunch, doing documentation through lunch or after work or on weekends, doing those things. When somebody calls, oh, can we squeeze a patient in? They need to be seen right now. Okay, let me finagle things around. Let me get all this. And I will tell you, for me, it was so rare to actually be rewarded for doing any of that. It was the thing. So we'd get into talking about like pay. Well, always being salary. Many of you may be salary. And so if you're a salary employee, it doesn't matter if you work 8 hours or 12 hours or 20 hours or whatever, you're going to get that pay. But like with your documentation, well, you can, doesn't matter when you document, document, it's still all going to go into the same time. Now, if you're hourly, if you're paid by hourly, how are the bosses coming down on you? Be like, well, you sometimes they're hinting to not document on the clock, do that on this time or do that. They're trying to cut these little corners and stuff like that. But trying to set it up where, no, we can't be there. We'll give that all up, put the extra work on the salary people to so that you can get that done and get out of here and not cost us more money. Or things like getting more patients in. Like, how often are you like rewarded or celebrated? And I know I've worked for several companies that would push you. It's like, you need to see more people. You need to get more in. You need to get more in. And the only thing that led over to was setting a new standard. Okay, you did X number of visits this month. That now becomes your standard. We know that you can do it, so you need to do it again. Okay. And if possible, you need to up it just a little bit more. We saw that you possibly had little cancellations right here. We can make it a little bit more. So you could have run yourself ragged. And then what did you get? Oh, just do more work. Now you're probably saying, well, Matt, you probably get bonuses. Well, yeah, you get bonuses. I work for companies that would give bonuses. But here's the thing. First off, making the bonus structure overly complex. I cannot even explain the bonus structure with some of these companies. Well, the bonus is based upon how much EBITDA, so the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciations, and depreciations and assets, or something like that. And we go, well, it has to be this much of this, and how much of your revenue that you got to come in, and the most convoluted thing. And so you get your EBITDA here. And then, you got to make sure your cancel no-show rate is under this. Now, if it's over this, you can't do this and you have this. And so then you got your new visit rate and you got to do this and you got to, how many units are you getting? So this huge, crazy math equation that I swear the BCS college football computer rank, whatever that they use was easier to understand than these things, but to get some sort of bonus. But here's the sad thing about a bonus. The bonus would be taxed at the capital gains tax, which is what, 35%? So 35% of that is gone to the government. Whatever that you got is gone to the government. Now, taking that bonus as well, so whatever money that you got going over, look at over the time that bonus was, if it was a monthly or a quarterly or whatever, and figure out how much time over 40 hours per week or whatever, and then figure out how much per hour that bonus was. And I've seen people that were seriously making like $2 for every additional hour, about $2 or $3 more. So is that worth actually doing all of that with the expectation of, well, you're going to have to do more. We'll throw you a bone here, but we're going to expect you to do a little bit more. Now, like I said, I don't want to come off of this whiny, complaining thing. I just want to make it a reality. Just make it a reality there. But here's another thing, again, kind of going to that person's last bit of the comment, that the kids take off for much less nowadays. You know, I'm thinking back when, again, I was a kid and then that early part of my career. How often, and maybe you can say this as well, if you had a parent who was busting their tail to do that stuff, how often were they not doing things with you because they were at work? You know, I can remember back to my dad worked super hard. My dad worked so hard when I was a kid, and thankful that he did. And I applaud that. But seeing things where couldn't be at Little League games, you know, couldn't come to school things, you know, didn't get to spend time on weekends because he was having to go into work or doing this. I legitimately remember leaving church several times because he got a call and we had to leave because he had to go to work. And those times that he was away that I didn't get to have with him when I was a kid. And then I looked at that in my career, in the early part of my kid's life, that I couldn't go to school functions that they would do. Little things. I don't, you know, little things mean so much to you when you're a parent. But going to the little things at school, going to their games, going to their functions, just doing those things there, and to be in the moment with them. And like I said, to be in the moment, but you know, there were times where I missed out on them, right? You couldn't go to that school function. You're showing up late to that performance on there. You know, you're trying to watch the game, but you have to send out emails. You got to read this. You got to do other stuff that you're not there in the moment with them. And I really hit that point, and I'll say this. I really hit that point several years ago when I was with the company, and I'll never forget that they kind of misled me in something. And this changed so much with me that they told me, we want you to have this great work-life balance. And people like talking about that work-life balance. We want to have this great work-life balance. And that's what I went in to expect. Okay. And they said, what we want you to do, we want you to do 3 10s and 2 5s. Okay, cool. I can do that. That sounds cool. Well, first off, they would get so upset that I would actually work the 5 hours on those 2 5-hour days. They would get so upset that I was doing that. And it's like, whoa, okay. Yeah, and it was just these very passive aggressive things. And I'll never forget, it came down to this thing where an area vice president was sitting across from me, and he's talking, and he looked at me and he goes, how much are you doing on nights and weekends? And in that moment, it clicked in my head. I said, I do not need to be here. Okay. And I do not need to be here. And I look back on things like going to these big director meetings, and people were applauding, calling up directors that were like, you know, they worked till 8:30 every night this past week to see a patient to get this in. They went to this on this weekend, and people were applauding and going in my head of going, why? Like, what extra benefit did that get you? The only thing that got you was some applause here. So you took time away from your family, or you took time away from the things that you wanted to do to just give back, and the only thing you got was applause? Okay? That doesn't make sense. And so I know now I put much more value on doing those things outside. So when they talk about, well, you're missing those days, taking off for much less, we need mental health days. Sometimes you need a mental health day that you're not feeling everything. The world is bearing down and crushing you. You need that time off. Prioritize that. Spending the time with your family and friends and doing those things that you need. But when you go to work, I'm going to say this, and don't take stuff out of context. But when you go to work, you work hard. I work hard when I'm here. I put the time and the effort in there. I work hard here, but I have to give stuff over here. I have to give that. I'm going to do what I should be doing, and I'm going to give it here, but I'm going to get so much in return when I do stuff outside of that. And I think it is starting to change. I do see these smaller clinics and these that are growing, that they so value their therapists and take care of it. And I think that is so important to value them. let them take that time off. Give them a monetary bonus or something like that for the time and effort of the stuff that they do. When they go above and beyond, give them that reward. Also, I'm going to say this maybe, I don't know, it could be a future video. When it comes for performance reviews, if there's ever a score on there which that anyone ever has to say, well, nobody gets this, it doesn't need to be on the scale. I worked for a company that said, well, 5 have to go above and beyond and nobody gets a 5. Well, take the 5 off of there. If nobody can get the 5, do not even put the 5 on there, because because if you work hard and you don't get it, there is no incentive to keep working. And I think that is really the thing. It's when you went above and beyond and you did all these things and there was no incentive, that there was nothing that actually benefited you. What the heck? I'm just going to prioritize these things because I'm going to get that payoff and that benefit. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, opinions, and beliefs all down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up button. Of course, subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you a copay. So, and until next time, take care of yourself. Take care of your patients. I'll see you then.